No one can escape their past. The sins we've committed and the sadness we've caused. No matter how far we run, our past remains, as ever present as the moon in the sky. It looms in wait for the day when we are forced to face it. But only in doing so can we truly make peace and move on in hope towards tomorrow. They took Athena from the courtroom straight to the station. She's probably being questioned at this very moment. After this past year, I took it for granted that those two would always be here. But now, Apollo has gone off on his own to seek his own truth. And my pursuit of the truth only ended up with Athena becoming the new suspect. Some boss I turned out to be.
It's even quieter in here than usual.
Yeah. It seems so empty, too.
I just don't get it, Daddy. All of your reasoning during the trial seemed perfectly solid.
Yeah. And I still believe it was. At least, based on what we know.
But now, Athena is the one who's being accused.
During the trial for the bombing and murder that occurred at the Cosmos Space Center, the lighter used by the real culprit was found. This lighter proved the defendant, Solomon Starbuck, innocent. But Athena's prints were found on it instead. And she was subsequently arrested for the murder.
But Athena couldn't have done it. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, none of it does. I've been racking my brain, but I just can't figure it out. Where is the flaw in my reasoning? What have I got wrong in this case?
You know, Daddy, if Athena was here, she wouldn't just be sitting around thinking. She'd be out there doing something. You are going to defend Athena, right, Daddy?
Of course I will. And thanks, Trucy. I needed that push. Trucy's right. The trial is tomorrow. There's no time to waste. If I'm going to prove Athena's innocence, I better get out there and find some evidence.
Off we go, then. We're on a hunt for evidence that'll prove Athena's innocence. Great.
But before we go, I'd better tidy up the evidence I have on hand. Athena is probably still in the middle of being questioned, so Trucy's right. The thing to start with is talking to people at the Space Center. Director Cosmos, do you have a minute?
Galactic Scooter, full speed ahead!
Director? He scooted away.
His expression changed the instant he saw you, Daddy.
Yeah, well, I dragged his name through the mud pretty good at the trial earlier today. We were here only yesterday. Oh, hey! Mr. Starbuck, you've been released, huh?
Yep, and I came straight here. This is all thanks to you and your team, Mr. Wright. You've given me a second chance to fly into space again. I can't thank you enough. Except...
What's wrong? I thought he'd be happy to be acquitted.
As I was coming out of the detention center, I saw Miss Sykes.
He saw Athena?
I was at a loss for words. I didn't know what to say to the poor girl. And then, you know what? She flashed a peace sign at me. Congratulations on your acquittal, she said. Now you can go back into space someday.
Yeah, that sounds like Athena. I can just picture it.
But I saw her eyes. They were red and swollen from crying. She's gotta be suffering. She must be so worried. And yet she went out of her way to be nice and give me that big smile.
She held back her own tears so she could give someone else a smile. That's so Athena.
There's no question about it. That girl is innocent. Please, Mr. Wright, you have to make sure she goes free. And then they could put me in prison instead. I don't mind.
We can't have that either, Mr. Starbuck. Don't worry, Mr. Starbuck. I'm going to give her the very best defense I can. I promise to get her acquitted, just like I did for you.
I know she'll be all right with you in her corner. I know you'll never give up on her. Apollo has a fine boss to look up to. I still can't believe Launchpad 1 was switched with the Space Museum.
What could have made Director Cosmos do such a thing?
I haven't the foggiest idea. So there was never going to be a launch that day, not from the very beginning. Wonder if Clay knew.
I imagine he must have. Surely he would have noticed when you went aboard the rocket.
It's pathetic to think I was the only one who got taken in. I guess that's about how it goes when you're worth less than space debris.
Is he going to be all right, Daddy? His expression looks as dark as a black hole.
Well, that's just how he is. Mr. Starbuck, do you remember anything about the murderer?
Not really. I only saw a shadowy figure in the dark after all.
Yeah, I guess that was a little too much to hope for.
Hey, I heard something from the police though. They said they never did find a 10 caliber gun down that trash chute.
Just as I thought. The culprit must have carried it away with him when they escaped.
So, was the person you saw holding a gun, Mr. Starbuck?
I couldn't really tell.
But it wasn't Athena, right? Could you tell if the person was male or female, tall or short?
I can't even tell you that much. Man, I'm useless. When the culprit opened the door and some light came in, I should have been able to see.
The door? Ah, yes. As I recall, they opened this door here as they made their escape.
The door to Launchpad 1, right?
Yeah, except right now, the door leads to the Space Museum.
You mean the launch pad and the Space Museum are switched right now?
Yeah, they're trying to investigate the theory you came up with in court.
So they're recreating the conditions, huh? I'd like to see what's beyond that door now. Mr. Starbuck, could you open this door for us?
Sure, just let me have my print scanned here.
Did the launch pads get switched back and forth a lot?
Well, back when the Space Museum was Launchpad 2, they used to switch the pads around at times.
But these days, Launchpad 2 is only used as a tourist attraction, right?
Right, because, quite frankly, the Space Center needs the money.
I hear ya. Times sure are tough.
Daddy! Daddy, let's go check out what's beyond that door.
Sure, let's go.
Hey, why don't I come along? I can show you around.
Huh? I wonder what these dead leaves are doing here.
Maybe they were stuck to the bottom of somebody's shoes. There are lots of trees around the Space Center.
She's right. It's a modern, state-of-the-art building, but it's surrounded by trees. But I don't know. If they were stuck to the bottom of somebody's shoes, wouldn't they look more crushed up? These don't look like they've been stepped on.
Maybe there's some kind of secret hatch in the corridor, and they came in that way?
And not everything is set up like a magician's stage, you know. So this is another one of those devices for opening the door, huh?
Yep, but this one doesn't require fingerprint verification. You just hit the button and open sesame.
So when you and Clay went through here, you didn't need to show your prints either?
That's right, Trucy. Just like how the culprit didn't need to scan their prints when they escaped back out of the Space Museum corridor into Boarding Lounge 2. Well, I don't see anything else that jumps out at me. And I imagine this corridor is built exactly like the Launchpad 1 corridor.
Curse the wretch who sullied my good name! Reverse course and full speed away!
Director Cosmos, wait!
I'll handle this, Daddy. Take that!
Yeah! The mobility system has been compromised!
Trucy's knife throw was a direct hit to one of his tires.
And the streak continues.
Maybe I should have kept a closer watch on what tricks she's been practicing.
My dear old battleship! We fought many a skirmish together. It's been an honor.
Daddy, he's going to blow that thing up!
Nah, I bet all that button will do is make it go haywire again.
Very well. I surrender. As a prisoner of war, I expect to be treated honorably.
Director Cosmos, when you were talking in court about switching the launch pads, you used your right to remain silent about the reason as to why. I'd like Director Cosmos to tell us why he switched the two launch pads to begin with.
Please, I can't. I exercise my right to remain silent. But I will say, my hands were tied. I was only doing what I could to keep my men from getting caught in that blast. The center of the cosmos is shrouded in mystery, but I don't have any secrets left. Now that my battleship has been destroyed and I've been taken prisoner.
No secrets left, huh? I beg to differ. Looks like I'll have to undo his psyche locks if I want to get to the bottom of this. I want you to tell me everything you're hiding about the switching of the two launch pads.
I refuse! You can't make me! I can hold out longer than anyone.
I hope I never get like this when I'm old. Now let's see. Where to start? This is how you explained your motive for switching the launch pads. You did it. Thanks to you switching the launch pads, the astronauts escaped injury from the blast. Instead, they safely boarded the museum's rocket, far away from the actual explosion.
Huh. My astronauts were raring to go on an authentic adventure in space. How do you propose I had them board a fake rocket without them noticing?
I agree you couldn't have done it without help. For one, they would have figured it out the instant they stepped into the Space Museum. You figured you could fool Mr. Starbuck once he'd been drugged with his medication, but without the help of this person, it would have been impossible to pull your plan off. Take that! You must have gotten Mr. Terran to help you.
Yerk!
He stole the tranquilizers from his mentor's locker and slipped them to him. And then, with Mr. Starbuck in a daze, they boarded the replica rocket in the museum.
Ah! Someone please help this poor prisoner of war!
How is he able to spin around like that? If you really wanted to save the astronauts' lives, shouldn't you have just called off the launch?
If I could have done that, do you think I would have gone to all that trouble?
I guess he must have had a compelling reason why he couldn't call it off. But how did you know to switch the pads in advance of the bombing incident?
Well, that's because I was warned in advance. Once I received that warning, it was my duty to ensure my astronauts' safety.
But it was just a warning. It could even have been a prank. Why did you believe in it so completely?
But because I went to one of those mediums that everyone's talking about these days.
Oh? I didn't realize channeling was back in vogue. Besides, I thought it was you yourself that got the warning via telephone.
Yes, that's right. The bomber contacted me personally. My battleship is equipped with a special advanced communication system, you see.
AKA a regular old telephone.
It's been a while. Planning another launch? I see you haven't learned. I'll never forget the terror I felt when I received that call.
The bomber said, "It's been a while." And that was enough to make you take the threat seriously? Perhaps Director Cosmos took the threat so seriously because the Space Center had been involved in a bombing once before? Maybe the culprit in the current case is the same person who was involved in this incident. The Hat 1 miracle, that epic story of survival. People across the nation know it now as a heroic tale of bravery. But in truth, it was an act of sabotage perpetrated by our current killer, wasn't it? Very few know about the previous plot, so when the caller said, "It's been a while," you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that the danger was real and it wasn't a prank.
Yeah! Didn't anyone ever tell you to go easy on ex-servicemen? Yes, the Hat 1 miracle was really a desperate battle against an act of sabotage. I even lost the life of one of my staff members in the fight.
Sabotage? Murder? So this is the ugly truth behind the Hat 1 miracle.
I let my guard down. I thought the saboteur had been caught and that the case was closed.
Huh? Wait a minute. The murder at the Space Center 7 years ago. This must be the person Director Cosmos thought was the culprit. Take that! Simon Blackquill, the murder suspect in a case that happened here 7 years ago. The place and time of the two incidents, the murder and the sabotage, were the same, so you thought that he committed both crimes. But while Prosecutor Blackquill was behind bars, you got another threatening call. If the culprit this time is the same as 7 years ago, then it isn't Simon Blackquill. Realizing that, you were shaken. It meant the true culprit's been running free all this time.
How do you keep seeing straight through me?
The reason why Director Cosmos won't talk about why he switched the launch pads is connected to the truth behind the Hat 1 miracle. The sabotage and murder that happened at this Space Center 7 years ago. Director Cosmos, tell us what you're hiding.
If you really want to understand the reason I decided to switch the launch pads, we'll have to start with the story of that horrible nightmare from 7 years ago.
7 years ago? You mean that so-called Hat 1 miracle?
The launch went smoothly, but once the ship entered outer space, then the troubles began. It was all the handiwork of a certain person and their evil scheme.
So Mr. Starbuck's traumatic experience wasn't accidental.
Not only that, but before the launch, a very valuable piece of moon rock was stolen. But that wasn't the worst of it! One of my staff members was murdered!
Wow, I had no idea such awful events were behind that exciting story of space heroism.
All that in spite of the Space Center having very strict security in those days. All personal effects were examined thoroughly, coming or going. You couldn't even smuggle a withered old leaf through those checkpoints.
So, do you have any clue who was responsible for the sabotage?
At the very least, I know it wasn't Simon Blackquill. I don't know enough to identify the true culprit, but it's clear what that person is. To put it simply, a spy.
A spy? You mean somebody who infiltrates a foreign country? Carries out dangerous missions and always gets the girl?
Someone's watching way too many late-night movies. Well, I guess if we're talking about blowing up a rocket and stealing research material, it's not all that surprising that a spy could be behind it all.
Make no mistake, there's cutthroat rivalry between nations in the space R&D race. Some try to outdo others by any means possible, even deliberate obstruction. 7 years ago, we got a call before launch warning us of sabotage.
The same MO this time.
Yes, and here I thought the perpetrator had been caught, but it looks like I was wrong.
Prosecutor Blackquill seems more like a ninja than a spy, don't you think?
Aren't ninjas and spies basically the same thing?
But there's good reason we failed to find the real spy. A massive cover-up by the government. Government officials were too embarrassed to admit that they had allowed such a thing to happen at the hands of a spy.
Don't tell me. They made the police rush the investigation.
They did indeed. And then, to cover up the sabotage, they cleaned up the story.
And that was the Hat 1 miracle, wasn't it? But then, 7 years later, the same MO. Advance warning of sabotage. That must have been the director's reason for switching the launch pads. 7 years ago, the spy gave you some advance warning of their plan, just like this time. That was what made you switch the launch pads, wasn't it?
That's right. The caller knew the facts of the case 7 years ago, despite the cover-up. They knew about the sabotage, the moon rock, the murder, and they said, "You don't want things to go like they did 7 years ago, do you?" I immediately thought of calling off the launch, but the government wouldn't let me. We don't give in to the likes of terrorists. We must proceed for our country's honor. It was quite a moving speech, actually.
Moving? Really? Maybe if you're easily inspired by political talking points.
But I knew the truth. We had been warned, which meant that the danger was very real. And I knew there was no way to stop the spy. No matter what I did, they would find a way. That's why I switched the launch pads and staged the moving rescue scene. First, I snuck into the center the night before and switched the launch pads. That way, the astronauts would go from boarding lounge 1 to the Space Museum. Then I put a closed for repair sign at the door to launch pad 2 in boarding lounge 2.
You did that so normal visitors wouldn't enter, right? What else did you do?
I enlisted the help of several staff members, including Terran.
But you didn't let Mr. Starbuck in on it?
He'd already been through enough, and he's no good at lying to keep a secret. I'm afraid I had no choice but to have him drugged. My plan went well until...
Clay's murder, huh?
After the culprit made their escape, I switched the launch pads back. I did it in such a way that no one would find out. But after all that effort, Terran is dead and the Hat 2 is destroyed. Then the Hope capsule, which had returned to us only recently, was also lost in the blast. My home, the center of the cosmos. My beautiful Cosmos Space Center is done for!
Wait, what did he mean by the Hope capsule was lost in that blast? I thought that the Hope capsule was found at the crime scene with Mr. Terran. It had just been brought back by the Hope space probe with asteroid samples inside. So what kind of samples are they? What's in them?
The samples are scheduled for analysis in the near future. We haven't had time since they just came back the day before Terran's murder. The capsule was being held in a safe in Launchpad 1, but I gave it to Terran before the incident so it wouldn't be destroyed in the explosion. The idea was that with it safely in Terran's possession, he could make it look like he rescued it during this staged miraculous escape. But our precious research materials ended up lost to that explosion anyway.
But I thought Clay was supposed to keep it safe.
You misunderstand. The launchpad explosion wasn't the one the capsule was lost to. It was lost after the police confiscated it as evidence. It was the courtroom bombing from the other day. The capsule was in there in the courtroom as evidence and was blown to smithereens.
Yet another casualty of that blast.
Ultimately, I think the courtroom may have known about the switching of the launch pads.
What? How?
The police found a wiretapping device during their investigation today. A bug aboard my battleship. A tap on my advanced communications system.
A wire on that phone?
Yes. A wire on this very phone. I used this phone to give instructions to my staff about the launchpad switch. Just to the few select members who knew about the plan. Just before the incident, staff members were coming in and out of Launchpad 1. The culprit probably slipped in with them amid the confusion.
And planted the bomb then? Yes, if they were tapping your phone, they definitely could pull something like that off. So you really think the same spy is behind this incident and the one 7 years ago?
Yes, I'm sure of it.
Then this spy must be the phantom Prosecutor Blackwell has been chasing.
But Prosecutor Blackwell told me once. The hunt I've been on for the Phantom of 7 years past continues even still. For starters, that case happened right here at this very space center too.
So if we can find this Phantom...
That's right. We can clear Athena's name. And then there's the matter of Prosecutor Blackwell, too.
What about him?
Well, if the culprit of 7 years ago is the same person as in the current incident, it would mean Prosecutor Blackwell is innocent. That's still an if, though.
I wonder how dangerous that guy would be in court without handcuffs. But if we're going on a ghost hunt, count me in.
It's all over for me. Spin, spin, whirl, whirl. I'm done for. The center of the cosmos is doomed.
Do you think he's going to be all right, Daddy?
Well, at least he'll be in good company. There must be planets out there he can spin with. Which reminds me, I'd like to delve a little deeper into the Hat 1 mission, too.
If you want to learn more, start with the Space Museum. There's a Hat 1 exhibit there. Oh, don't mind me. I'll just keep spinning here and see how the cosmos unfolds.
It's like he achieved spiritual enlightenment or something.
I'm sure he'll stop once he gets dizzy. Let's go visit the Space Museum.